And welcome, ladies and gentlemen, back to the Valley of the Judged as OBS decides to load things slowly. Sorry about that, folks. I am your one and only gaming monk, better known as Mildra, and with me I have my good brother here in the temple, the man with all of the probing questions, good brother Nephenor.
All your tentacles belong to us.
Do you have some sort of backroom deal with Japan regarding the tentacles thing?
Who do you think supplies them?
Fair. So, after coming off of the interesting run with Tokyo Conception in what I called the month of Megaten, even though it was a month and a half, it is time to go into our requisite between season affair before we get into what we're covering next week, which we will get to at the end of the show. So, multiplayer battle online battle arena. MOBA. Many people have heard these terms, some of you are groaning at these terms, some of you are getting Vietnam flashbacks from this term. But it is a well-worn genre going all the way back to the Defense of the Ancients mod for Warcraft 3. A mod that I'm pretty sure lives rent-free in Blizzard's head ever since.
Yeah, I think they're still crying about how they can't control it.
I have heard that part of the reason why there was that absurd mod policy with Warcraft 3 Reforged. Some people speculate that was because they didn't want another one of those cases on their hands.
Doesn't surprise me. I mean, now that Blizzard's decided to go corporate rather than gaming.
Mm-hmm. But even with that, given the strong cast of characters in MOBAs, it's understandable to want to bring it into tabletop, especially since games like League have very, very fascinating settings, but up until recently they haven't done much with it.
I will give them credit for what they've done with it recently. Even if I don't like the game, the fact that they've actually decided to do something with the setting is nice.
Yeah, whether it be Hextech Mayhem, whether it be the Ruined King, along with a bunch of other games that are in the family of a League of Legends story. And none of them are the same. None of them are MOBAs, and none of them are even the same genre. Like the Ruined King is a row-based, turn-based RPG. Hextech Mayhem is a platformer. Like it's the kind of platformer that would have fit right in with the mascot craze of the '90s.
There was also one, I can't remember what it was called, but it was kind of like almost like a Spyro type game.
Yeah. Now, in the world of tabletop, unfortunately, I think things are lacking unless you're dealing with the fan-made end of things. The only official thing was one 5e module called Welcome to Bilgewater. That was made in, and it wasn't them who made it. It was Roll20 who made it, which is about as lame as when Wizards announced, "Hey, we're bringing Magic the Gathering into TTRPG," and it ends up being just a setting book for Ravnica and Theros in D&D's setup. I don't think anyone was asking for that. Yeah, I know. LOL Hasbro and all of that, but the point still stands. And of course, with other ones, they've had interesting setups. But I do want to talk about one thing regarding MOBAs that I've said for years, and I'd like to get on my system. I'll probably clip this after the show. A lot has been talked about how MOBAs and hero shooters and like have very toxic player bases.
That's an understatement.
What I have said, and I think you can attest that I've been very consistent with this, is that that problem is self-inflicted.
That is very true. It's something they can fix too.
It is not only something that they can fix, it is something that is easily fixable because we've had the solution for at least 30 years. Because the reason why I say that toxicity is a self-inflicted wound is whether it be League, whether it be Overwatch, there is no way to do party finding. There's no way to set up a manual party and then fight and then get into matches. No reasonable way, at least. I think some of them have it, but it's still very overwrought. And for newcomers, they don't have. There's nothing like a server browser. There's a reason why server browsers have been a staple in games like Battlefield since day one.
Yeah, Overwatch has got something, but it's not that good. I actually need to check out Marvel Rivals and see how they handle it.
Mm-hmm. And the other thing is putting everybody in the equivalent of a ranked playlist and having match types that are heavily dependent upon cooperation and team coordination. And since a lot of people are going to be matched up with randos, the inevitable is going to happen.
And I just found it here. The one I was thinking of was Song of Nunu, which is a League of Legends story.
Mm-hmm. There is a very simple solution, and that is CPU matches. I have to say it like that because if I say bot matches, and I'm obviously referring to bots in like FPSs, a lot of people misconstrue it as like the hacker kind of bots that have been a problem in some games.
I'm looking at you. Oh god, what the heck is that one? The Titan one, whatever. Where it's
Titanfall.
Titanfall, yes, that's the one.
Yeah, they had that problem largely because of a unforeseen exploit with their cloud-based setup.
And one idiot who decided to exploit it.
Yeah, to the point where nobody could play, and the player base basically had to go scorched earth. But the reason why I say bot matches are an easy solution is because in that form, you can have a way to casually experience the game without the risk of dealing with sweaties. Now, if you got sweaties in your own friend group, that's a whole different problem. that is the case of you know what you signed up for. But this is why labbing has been a thing in the fighting game scene for decades. And in something like Halo, putting aside your issues with Halo, the most popular multiplayer mode in Halo was Big Team Battle. And
makes sense.
Bungie, when they were designing Big Team Battle, they were like they want to treat Halo like a party game, which it kind of succeeded at. There's not a whole lot of serious playing with Big Team Battle. That's mostly to have a big environment to screw around with the mechanics in.
Yeah, it's a good way to just play around and see what you can do.
Mm-hmm. And furthermore, you want to know how I know it can be done when it comes to like MOBAs? Because I've seen it done with MOBAs and Battle Royales.
Yeah, it's not something that's that hard. It's just you gotta actually put the effort in to do it.
When we did the alpha for Mecha Break, it had the option to do CPU matches. And we used that to do dumb things like all Panther matches. You know, where everybody on both sides is using the same mech. And this being a mech that specializes in charge attacks, chaos was inevitable.
Now that sounds like fun.
Gigantic, one of the more unfortunate stories in terms of a game getting screwed over. Although Rampage Edition is playable, and fortunately, even though the player base online is low, you do have the option of CPU matches. But again, there's that. Even in the world of BR, I booted up Naraka Blade Point, and I found out you could do whole matches with CPUs in that.
See, that's a good thing.
You know, the reason why those kind of things are important is it's a way to allow people to experience the setup of those games in a less stressful, less high pressure situation. And that's why I find it funny when I see like Riot or Blizzard or the like hemming and hawing about how the toxicity thing is a problem, but we don't know how to fix it. As far as I'm
They know. They just don't want to.
I'd like to say they want the appearance of it.
I wonder also, this is just me putting on a tinfoil hat, but it seems like a lot of times when it comes to problems, they like to keep the problems in place because then they always have something they can say they're working on rather than, actually working on what they should be.
Mm-hmm.
But like I said, that's just me in the tinfoil hat.
Yeah, and I think it's more that there's the idea that even with the toxicity, people are still coming in. But if that's really the case, then why do you need to keep making changes? And when it comes to League, I will admit this. In some of the early days, I actually did enjoy League. My breaking point was the death of Dominion and the forcing of people onto two playstyles, Summoner's Rift and ARAM, both of which swing too far on the pendulum either way. ARAM is a dice roll. Now, you think I enjoy that, but there are certain dice rolls I don't like doing. And Summoner's Rift, one match can feel like a birthday. whereas something like Dominion, it was a more relaxed affair. I could do stuff that I couldn't do in other formats, and a match wouldn't last longer than maybe 20 minutes, 30 at most.
Yeah, I think I played. It wasn't League. It was one of the other. Oh no, it was Blizzard's entry into the MOBAs.
Oh, don't get me started on that. That one solved so many problems, and then it died a death because they tried to force a esport when it's within its first year.
Yeah, that one I tried it, and I was just like, "Yeah, this isn't a game I like."
Mm-hmm.
I'm just not a fan of the MOBA style.
Yeah. But there's way too many characters and way too many waifus, hi Akira, to just overlook that fact. And it would be natural to want to do that in TTRPG form. Which brings us, of course, to Legends Never Die after about 20 minutes of bullshitting.
But that's half the fun.
Mm-hmm. But now, I will admit, in full disclosure, I have interviewed the creator Tyson Burris multiple times for both this and his Aether and Steamworks RPG. I did back Legends Never Die on Kickstarter at the level where I could get a custom character, so you'll know it when you see it, folks. Especially those of you who've known me long enough. But this is going to be a light one because the PDF is 33 pages.
So this one sounds like it's a good game for we're not doing our regular game this week. We're just taking an off week to downtime.
Mm-hmm. And it is very much built with PvP in mind. And Dragon in the chat saying shippers are a major problem. The only kind of shippers who are a major problem are the OTP types. The types who get way too fixated on trying to have their version of reality be canon. Those are...
I still reminds me of that joke. Why is it that cannons are so effective? Because they sink all types of ships.
Well, I've had a similar one. Head cannons get the head cannon.
That works. Yeah.
But obviously, going into the introduction, it's going into what it is, which we talked about. It is kind of funny that Heroes of Newerth is brought up. When the hell is the last time somebody brought that game up? What's next? Are you going to be invoking Legend of the Cryptids?
Hey! Don't be talking bad about the cryptids.
I will remind everyone, including myself, that we hold these truths to be self-evident that all are cremated equal.
Flamen.
But it goes. This game is designed for 2 to 10 players. Although such a large table with 10 could make for long-lasting games that take many sessions to complete. Smaller groups could finish one-shot style games within 1 to 4 hours. Each player picks a champion template, writes their stats on their character sheet, page 2, extras in the back of the book, or feel free to download the PDF of the character sheet. Determines their theme and their character's name. And it goes into if you're picking the game up, as far as what backgrounds. Once everyone has a champion to their liking, you decide if this is going to be PvE or PvP. More assistance on setting up those sorts of stories can be found later in the book. The game only requires 1d6 to play, a single 6-sided die, but it is recommended that you have at least 6 of them for ease of play, or even 6 for each player if they prefer their own lucky dice. Let's be honest, most people are going to bring their own dice because there are no atheists at the gaming table.
The dice are the gods, of course.
Mm-hmm. And
as from someone who has 1,300 dice or more, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And of course, the basic game goes as follows. The scorekeeper, or GM, I'm going to be referring to it as the GM because I am not paid by the syllable, provides a narrative scene and describes events that are taking place around the players, then provides challenges and threats. The players must take turns, starting with a d6 plus mobility roll with the highest score going first. This is initiative. Ties reroll, and with enemies getting their own rolls as a whole based on their challenge rating. If one roll for lackey is made, all lackeys go on that part of the round, etc. Players take turn based on their initiative position, attempting to overcome challenges or enemies, trying to gain more successes than a target threshold provided by the GM or the NPC list later in the book. Enemies will take their turns, so pretty much standard fare in that. Players will use one ability on their turn so long as they have the appropriate resource. Dashes, shields, or mana. One dash and one shield can be used between players' turns to avoid harm from enemies. Players can move 3 squares unless otherwise stated by their class, once on their turn, or auto-attack using a capability of their choice at -1 die on the roll, minimum 1. Then, scorekeeper describes the next scene. Players make their next decisions, and it keeps going. It is interesting to go right into that kind of stuff at the start. Usually that's the kind of thing that you'd get in a few pages, and we're also getting the character sheet on the 3rd page of this PDF. You can kind of see the basic setup.
Well, it's jumping in fast considering this is a short game. That's not surprising.
Mm-hmm. So you have your gold. In fact, we have one thing here though, and even though the text is kind of small and kind of crunched, this is doing something that I like, and that is breaking down the parts of the character sheet and what goes where.
It is a clean character sheet. I will give them that.
Yeah. Some games are a bit tricky to run in one sheet. I don't think this is going to be one of them.
Heck, this might be a little too much space.
Uh, but obviously you have gold, which you're going to be using to get enchantments to equipment. Uh, Milestones and level. Milestones are difficult achievements. Uh, when you get 3 milestones, you get a level. When you gain a level, you can either you get a different thing based on the level that you picked. Uh, there are only 12 levels, and I know some might go that this seems a bit linear, but the thing with this game is, and we'll definitely see this when we get to the archetypes. Um, Heavy customization is going to be dependent on equipment and enchantments more than what you can do, which is very much in keeping with a lot of MOBAs. Although I will admit the equipment list thing that's in a lot of MOBAs has a lot of traps, even with the amount of freedom it has. This is why I really liked the talent system that you saw in Heroes of the Storm, as well as the fact that everyone's on a shared level.
Yeah, that was something that I did like.
And hang on a sec, I just realized the music wasn't playing. Sorry about that, folks. There's been some technical issues on my end.
Never without a botch.
Mm-hmm. I know some people are gonna say it's scuff. No, I am nowhere near as bad as that Monarch, and I don't think I ever will. Because some people are just natural disrupting forces when it comes to tech. I'm not that bad. But I think one of the things that I do enjoy with this is that instead of doing HP, we have a injury and wound setup. That is going to make things go a hell of a lot smoother.
Yeah, it is nice to have that. I do like a little more flexibility when it comes to the damage.
Mm-hmm. And since we're going to be using a D6 most of the time, it makes sense to have it this level of simple. But I think the only problem they have with the whole player sheet thing is the text being so small. I mean, it's not as much of a problem on a PDF. I can always zoom in, but in a physical book, that might create a problem. But I will also note I appreciate that dashes, shields, and mana are treated as different types of resources, and that will play a factor in the playstyles that we see. And one could kind of say that those 3 end up creating a kind of 3-role setup. Because obviously you can't do things like ADC, tank, and jungle in a tabletop.
Aw, but that's half the fun of the games, isn't it?
Yeah, but there's no way of knowing if the table itself is going to be doing a replication of like Summoner's Rift. Especially since some people are going to be more familiar with the characters of a MOBA rather than those sort of roles, and just getting those terms thrown at them is going to create a problem. I know I keep talking about this a lot, but proper teaching tools is an underrated trait in game design. In some cases, I'd almost say undervalued. But then we get into the combat details. Of course, they had to make the G.I. Joe reference.
Well, yeah, because knowing is half the battle. The other half is extreme violence.
but we have the first thing that we have is the 4 ranges. Out of range, which is 12 plus spaces away. Far range, 9 spaces. Close range, 6 spaces. Near range, 3 spaces. So pretty self-explanatory there.
And setting it up as more theater of the mind rather than actual miniatures.
Mm-hmm. And given that there are zones when it comes to a lot of MOBAs, that's going to be easier for people to wrap their head around. And I mean, if you want to do grid combat with this, you can, but I would probably end up doing a zone-based design. Something in the middle ground between theater of the mind and grid combat.
Kind of like what we did for Sword World.
A few more zones than that, but yes. If you've played Wild Arms 4 or 5, think of the Hex system in that, and that's kind of where I'd go.
I do have a fondness for Hex maps.
Mm-hmm. And of course, resources, we already mentioned dashes, shields, and mana. Dashes can be used to move 3 squares with some abilities using dashes as a resource. When you dash out of an opponent's range, if they do not dash to follow, they miss the attack. Shields reduce any damage taken by 2. You can gain 1 dash, 1 shield, or mana back when choosing to only move or defend yourself once a round. Which I always like when you have systems where you can get stuff back by just playing a bit more defensive, or in some cases play a bit more aggressive. The point is, when you have a means to get something back aside from wait 8 hours, people are going to be a little more inclined to use that thing instead of waiting to go Nova.
Well, I wonder if that's actually part of what's. I mean, it is got video game style roots, and that's a common theme in video games. Like in Doom, you got the whole you kill the guy with a brutal way, you get back ammo.
Mm-hmm. I mean, obviously, I think one of the early cases I can think of the concept is stuff like super bars and arcade games.
Yeah, that too.
But whenever there's a limited resource that you don't have a reliable way to get back, people are going to want to play defensive with it. That's not me calling anyone out. That's just human nature.
Like the fact that by the end of the mission, when you're fighting the final boss, you still haven't used half of your consumables.
Mm-hmm. And of course, then we have resting. That's your non-combat break. We have dead if you reach the defeated portion of the injury track, and then you're successfully hit by an enemy. As far as resurrection, that's up to the table. Then we have initiative position, which we already covered as a mobility roll. Then rounds, which is self-explanatory, I'd say. Then we have a bit of a thing on buffs and debuffs, which they do note cancel each other out. So if mobility gets debuffed and then buffed, it's just at the base state. Then things like stunned. Then ability, one of the 4 class-based options that you get. These are going to be your special actions. Only 1 ability can be used on a turn, and 1 dash or shield can be used after their turn to avoid an opponent's offense. Then ultimate, as you know, we gotta have ults. It is the strongest ability you have, and each has a prereq to be able to use. Once you've met its prerequisites, you can use the abilities, and the prerequisites start over. You can use an ultimate each time you meet the prerequisites, but only on your turn as an ability use, unless otherwise stated. I'm glad that they made it that you have to meet certain parameters instead of filling up a bar.
Yeah, that's more appropriate for a tabletop.
It reminds me of the fact that with Legend Edition, I decided not to do the whole fill up a bar to do limit breaks kind of thing. The main reason I did that was because I felt that adding another resource that was going to be doing that would have created too many questions. Plus, a big damage thing is cute in a video game, but the concept of limit break and trying to do that straight into tabletop is not as interesting because it's just a bigger attack. And obviously there's that here, but it's under a different parameter. I will also note, and this all of the art and all of the design was done by Tyson.
It is nice. I like it.
I do hope down the road I can cover his other work, Aether and Steamworks, because he has a very creative visual design. But then we get into the champions. Now, when it comes to the champions, they are presented as archetypes, akin to playbooks, but not as narrativist restrictive. First off, you have the concept. You have the abilities, and there is a bit of advice on how to make your own, which I do appreciate. You know, a lot of games when it comes to people making homebrew content, they give no advice whatsoever. You know, the whole throwing you into the pool and saying swim, damn it.
But isn't that how you teach?
But and when it comes to stat breakdowns, the main stats between capabilities and resources add up to 21 points. And the typical archetypes are damage dealers, tanks, magic casters, supporting characters, healers, specialists that can either lock opponents down, waste their resources, or do one thing really well but nothing else, or a mixture of any of the above, but not as powerful as any one field. And as mentioned before, the ultimate, and they give advice on how to do ults, and what I think the important thing is what the number ranges should be between specials and ultimate. That is a very good distinction to make about what the power gap is between the two. Because if you're having an ultimate be so limited, it should be on a higher power scale. You know, the more limited an ability is, the powerful the use of that ability should be.
Yeah, it's a cost for versus reward analysis kind of thing.
But then we get to the first two, and with first one is Archmage, so you're casty boy. And you see low physicality, high arcana, low technical and tenacity, low avoidance, decent cunning. 2 dashes, 1 shield, 4 mana. And then you have its 4 spells. Spell Blast, which you can do one of 2 things. Either do a spell that stuns, or do a dot. Magical Barrier, self-explanatory there. Spell Explosion, also, which has 2 options. Then Combination Spell, and I'm going to go to single page for this so that I can. So ultimate skill is remember your targets, and each of them has it say describe your ultimate in a way that fits your theme. the setup is you must have affected at least 10 targets with abilities. Each new round, the same targets can be counted again if affected by non-dot damage or debilitation. But
That is a rather amusing way of doing it.
yeah, and as far as what you get out of it, the Archmage draws upon their combined thematic might to create a highly destructive spell. This then branches out as an arcane blast that can target one or more targets that have previously been affected by one of the Archmage's abilities. This deals arcane successes and damage plus 6. Yeah, I probably should have mentioned this is on a success-based d6 approach, which is why it's important to have 6 d6s for everybody. And the Archmage choose how this damage is spread out on a target-by-target basis. All target could go to one target, or it could be spread around. This damage cannot be shielded. One time per combat. So that'd be a very good way to deal with a bunch of mobs and then dump that onto a B-bag. But then
I wouldn't know anything about dotting a bunch of mobs with fire and then running away.
Yeah, but then we have the arsenal, and full disclosure, this was my contribution. I ended up having a lot of back and forth with bringing Aldine into the concept, and I have to say I do like first off, I like the art that was used, and we ended up going through a lot of back and forth about how to handle the mechanics.
Yeah, waifu Frost Valkyries are always nice.
Yeah. Because I specifically said I didn't want it to be just an ice mage. And one of the references I used was Noctis's appearance in Dissidia NT. Since the whole idea is her making ice weapons. And you have no idea how many times I've had to tell artists that I commission, it is not the blade itself is not made of ice. The whole weapon is made out of ice. But the arsenal is meant to be a jack of many trades. I would not pick the arsenal as my first character just because of how it works. But I really like the approach that was done here. Because with the class abilities, you see that there's a different effect if you cast it the first time and then the second time.
Yeah, I didn't even notice that when I was doing the first glance at it. Huh,
for example, Rapier Staff is an avoidance roll, costs 1 shield. On the first cast, you summon a Rapier that will attempt to parry an attack. If the attack was in close range, make a counterattack immediately using Technical. +1 accuracy at level 2, no shield cost at level 3. Second cast, you summon a Staff that deflects attacks. If used against a ranged attack, reflect it back at half damage to a target within far range. +1 accuracy at level 2, no shield cost for first use in combat at level 3. And that's kind of how a lot of them go. And hey there, Kiwi, welcome to the party. We are just talking about a MOBA TTRPG known as Legends Never Die. But when it comes to the ultimate, this is probably an easier one. You must have summoned at least one weapon to use this ultimate. But here's where the catch comes in, because the ultimate skill, draw the arsenal. For each weapon that was summoned, make an arcane attack at +3 accuracy that does +1 damage for each weapon summoned previously, and causes any disabling features the abilities would normally cause as well. So even though you can pop this off, after only summoning one weapon, it is advisable not to use it for just that.
You want all the weapons.
Mm-mm. Because this is meant to be a walking arsenal. But then we have
Gilgamesh.
Yep.
In woman form.
Then we have Assassin, which is self-explanatory with how it's set up. It's going to be using dashes and mana for it. And its ultimate, you must have attacked while hidden 3 times. Then the Battle Scarred is Legend Never Dies, with some called Overwatch Squad. I ranted a bit earlier about my problems with Overwatch, but with the Battle Scarred, it's a all-rounder, much like the Arsenal, but it's not as setup heavy. And I'd say the Battle Scarred is more about being the guy who gets more dangerous the more damage he takes, since his ultimate skill is through fire and flame, which requires that you have taken at least 3 wounds this combat. Though it doesn't say that the wounds you take don't have to be still there when you activate it, just that you've taken them.
Yeah, so in other words, you can heal him and then he can go nuts with the damage.
Mm-hmm. Let's see, then the Blade Singer, which the Blade Singer in this, I don't think you, even though it's using magic blades, I don't think you could compare this to like the Blade Singer in D&D, which is just a swordsman who can do a little bit of magic. Which, whenever I see that kind of thing, I don't think that's what people are asking for when it comes to the fantasy of a magic swordsman.
And honestly, the name Blade Singer makes me think magic of bard rather than your standard just caster.
Mm-hmm. Oh, there have been Blade Singer in Essentials was a subtype of bard. Though I don't like thinking of Essentials, because Essentials was the canary in the coal mine, or them trying to overcompensate for people having so much disinformation about D&D 4. But its particular ultimate, the Maelstrom, you must have summoned and used all of their blades at least once. But then we have the Bruiser. This is going to be your frontliner, your tanky boy. And is another case where they're expecting to get hit. Although with some of the attacks, they kind of remind me of the heavy characters in Fighters. Especially, guys like... I was going to say Zangief, but Balrog would be a better analogy.
No, you must talk about heavy weapons, guy!
Of course. Well, you couldn't really... I don't think this is a game where you could do command grab all that easily. But then we have the Changer, who is definitely going to be one of the more advanced characters, because the big thing is having a kind of alt form with a lot of their setup.
Now, I am noticing the fact that they've got with their stats there both the sort of the double stat values.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is due
based
to
on their form, I'm guessing.
Yeah, that's where their ultimate skill, Become the Beast, comes in. Which basically has it that the green text is what you use for their abilities and not the white text. And in order to reach it, you have to have had 9 total successes on all rolls made. But then we have the Gungrave, which is gonna pop me, as I've been a fan of that character for years. But they're a frontline shooter, and I'd say that I'd say the Gungrave is gonna be closer to heavy weapons guy.
Does they have sandwich?
And of course we have the healer, which not only can heal wounds but also heal shields.
See, that's a nice thing, considering that they've got the dash or the shields and mana and all that, the different stuff like that. That being able to heal shields, nice.
Yeah. Their ultimate, in order to use it, allies have to have taken a combined 5 wounds and damage. And essentially, all allies gain the effect of Restoration, Protective Force, and Invigorate. But they can't use abilities again for the next 2 rounds. Which, I would say that's a fair trade. Because Restoration, you're healing wounds. Protective Force, you're boosting shields. And Invigorate, you're giving them a bonus 2 rolls. Or you could have them that they could use one of their abilities, dashes, or shields without cost.
Yeah, that's a pretty powerful ultimate.
Mm-hmm. And we have Lockdown. I'd say Lockdown is meant to be the controller kind of mage. Not an outright blaster caster, but somebody who's messing up the battlefield for everybody.
Blue mages.
Blue mages, the controller role in 4th. People who really specialize in AoEs and debuffs. And let's see, then we have the Ranger with the biggest little guy in the game.
I do like that it's not just ranged combat, but also traps, because that is something that I think that people forget with Rangers.
There's a reason why I've said that the quintessential vision of the Ranger, in my opinion, is John Rambo in First Blood.
I am your worst nightmare.
Because that's more or less what he's doing. I've said study that more than, say, Legolas for your Ranger concepts. So if I have to use a more recent example of someone who fits the Ranger archetype as it's intended to be, I've said it before, but Geralt.
Yeah.
And while they do have, and fortunately, a lot of Ranger archetypes I see in MOBAs and the like do place an emphasis on setting up traps or setting up ways to impede movement. So that they can be a sitting duck to get shot at.
Fresh meat.
Yep. Let's see, the Sanguine, so vampire. So anyone who wants to pick Alucard, this is where you get it. Which Alucard? Yes.
Personally, I'm going for the Alucard from Abridged.
The one who goes for walks. Very enthusiastic walks.
And is very upset when you destroy his 50-inch plasma TV.
70-inch, but point stands. But what I do appreciate is that it's not just drain, but also being you can take wounds with them to do damage. So in a roundabout way, the Sanguine here is kind of a Dark Knight.
Not to be confused with the Black Knight who always triumphs.
You're a loony. Let's see, but then we have our Sniper, which is exactly what you'd expect a Sniper to do. I'm glad that things like trick shots are a bit of a thing with the Sniper as well.
Yeah, bouncing bullets, that's always a fun thing to do.
Mm-hmm. And I just said, or Vlad from League of Legends. I think Ty outright name dropped Vlad in our interview. I'd have to double check. It's been a few years. But the Sniper is not going to be going in guns blazing. That's for other jobs. They are going to be sitting around quietly waiting for the right shot.
They are the scalpel that takes out what's needed.
Mm-hmm. And we have the Soul Taker, not to be confused with the enemy of the same name. They're definitely the tank. They're definitely the tanky boy, but the thing is that they're like a slow rolling boulder. In the way things are set up, especially with things like Gathering Storm. You know, when an enemy is defeated, if the Soul Taker assisted, they gain +1 to all damage for the rest of the scene. As well as gain +1 permanent dash, mana, and shield at ranks 2 and 3 of this ability. Or you can spend that bonus to restore a resource. And it costs 1 mana to do it, but consider if you're doing this in a match with a lot of mobs. And the big reason for it is more Gathering Storm means the ultimate is going to be more powerful. But, see, then we have the Swordmaster, which is definitely an interesting setup. It is a ranged melee with things like Blade Rush as well as Return Strike. Of course, then we have the tank, who is exactly what you expect a tank to be. The Trickster, which describes, I'd say, is more of the illusionist. And after that, we have after all of those archetypes, we have the threats. These are basically going to be a baseline of stat block. And the thing is, with each of the archetypes, I remember Ty bringing up that they're meant to be reinterpreted in a way that fits whatever character someone wants to play. But minions have pretty much one in everything. So these are the trash mobs. Lackeys are the middle ground, and then elites would be things like that one dragon in the jungle that everybody tries not to fight solo until really late game in Summoner's Rift. And elites are the only ones that can use abilities. And when it comes to elites, there's some variants, which are things like Storied here, and Raid Boss, which this would be that fucking dragon.
That fucking dragon, they're always in my way.
And we have a few other example setups, like with the Wildlings. and the Mega Wildling. I'd say these are meant to be stand-ins for like monsters. And after that, we have the threat abilities. Based on the threat level of each enemy, you'll have a recommended amount of special abilities they can use and the frequency they can use them. We've got a few for single attack, for AoE, and for defensive, as well as debuffs, buffs, and heals. And the last part is tips and tricks to kind of mess around with things, as well as some custom rules. And then we have the Shopkeep, the system by which players can pay to win.
Yay! Even in TTRPGs, they bring us pay to win.
Mm-hmm. It's also.
I do like the fact that one of the swords says "Legends Never Die" and the other one says "GG Noob."
And you can get both of those at Shop and Slay. But this is where we have the equipment enchantments that we mentioned before. The setup of them all having this 3-level setup, this definitely fits within the equipment shop that you see in MOBAs, without having any of the traps that can happen with that, because you've got consumables and each of the enchantments. None of the enchantments are really doing a number go up, which wouldn't make sense for this system because of how restrained the numbers are. But they're all doing some trick. So it'd be better to say that enchantments are kind of archetype-free abilities, I guess. And after that we have the equipment setup. Not the equipment setup, but just a standard setup for the glossary. So, like I said, that more or less covers Legends Never Die. It is unfortunate that there's no book markets, but again, 33 pages, so I'm not going to lose sleep over that. I'd say
most of the main rules are right at the beginning, which is nice.
Yeah. I would say the only problem that I have is that it throws you right into the thick of things at the first page instead of having like a table of contents or something like that.
Yeah, I could see that. Although the fact that they actually get right into how the game is played right at the beginning is also nice. That it's a very quick into game. It's not something that you really need to read heavily. You can just start playing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and since we skimmed past the way the die works, it is a D6 pool, where fours and fives count as a success. Sixes count as a success that explodes.
Exploding dice.
So that is how that works. But it's pretty straightforward all throughout. And aside from that one little nitpick regarding navigation, the only potential problem I could see is some people having character concepts that don't quite fit one of the existing archetypes. And this is a problem that Powered by the Apocalypse has, although I'd say with this one, because there's more archetypes, the problem isn't as blatant.
Yeah, they did give us a nice selection of archetypes, which is always good.
I do think now, as far as whether or not people would play this Grid Combat or Theater of the Mind, I have a feeling people would do more Theater of the Mind.
Yeah, it's a lot easier to deal with for something like this. And I'm always a fan of TTRPG that actually enables PvP. Probably why I love Paranoia so much.
Well, you have to, otherwise Friend Computer is going to ask you some very pointed questions.
friend computer is always there and is always right. Are you happy, citizen?
And then someone has to go get a new character sheet.
Well, no, they just pull out another one from the six-pack.
Yeah, that too. But with that in mind, if I were to go on my scoring system when it comes to Legends Never Die, I would go with strongly recommended. Even with some of the nitpicks that I have, there's too much that this does right.
Yeah, this is a very quick and easy game that's perfect for, hey, you know, one of the players can't make it tonight, so let's just do this.
I could see this very easily being run at cons.
Oh yeah, that is perfect place for it as a con game.
And if I run it using a map that looks like Summoner's Rift, maybe I can, for lack of a better word, cons some League players into playing.
You will play Summoner's Rift, you will enjoy it, and you will not even remember.
Mm-hmm. And hey, you could play Summoner's Rift and not have it go 2 fucking hours. Seriously, a lot of Summoner's Rift matches go way, way too long.
That could be worse. It could be old Alterac Valley matches from Classic WoW, which lasted days.
Look, I don't feel like getting Vietnam flashbacks about Pandemonium Warden, not Pandemonium Warden, Absolute Virtue from FF11. Even if you didn't play FF11, I know you know about that story.
I've heard bits and pieces of it.
Yeah. But as we wrap up this, we look towards the future. And starting next week, we will be tackling a game that I covered a few years ago in an interview. That being Weird Space. Weird Space, on the back of its book, has 3 words that perfectly describe what it is. Sci-fi bollocks.
I am your god.
And remember, folks, don't put lobster on ketchup or the android's head might explode.
Now that sounds like fun, actually.
And I was gonna make a penguin joke, but I'd be running that into the ground. But tune in next time for that particular number at the same monk time and the same monk channel. But until then, on behalf of the good brothers present and not present, my name is Mildra. I am your gaming monk. Stay fucking frosty, everybody.
上楽が上長年